Welcome back to the channel then guys, and happy new year 2024. So today in this video we are going to edit one of the photographs together that I clicked last year in 2023, probably in March, from Tehri Dam, Uttarakhand. So with that being said, let's get started. Once we are here in this beautiful world of Affinity photo in the raw photo manager or raw developing persona, the first thing we're going to do here is bump up the brightness. So with that being said, let's do it. After some basic adjustments like exposure, black point and brightness, we go to the clarity and bump up the clarity to get some more clear regions and more sharper shadows in the photograph. So once we are done with the clarity to around 56 to 60%, we bump up the vibrance and slight bit of saturation to the image. And as you can see up here, we have a beautifully balanced histogram. Although that is a beautifully balanced histogram, I want more details in the shadow. So for that, we head right into the shadow section here and bump up the shadows. You see, we have beautiful colors of the trees and foliage here. We have beautiful colors to the foliage down here on the right hand side. And once we are done with that, we go for some minor adjustments, some lens delineating. We develop this image. Once developed, the next thing and the first thing we're going to do here is increase the saturation of this foliage. So for that, we'll create an HSL panel, select the yellows and bump up the exposure, the saturation and luminosity slightly. Alright, then we are going to duplicate this layer and change the hue of the yellows to red. This is just for a dramatic effect and color addition. Then we invert this layer, choose the big round brush, soft round brush with white as the foreground color. We paint some regions in this photograph, just some regions, not everything, just some portions of the photograph, just to add enough drama to the image in the foreground. Just you see the before and after. And once we are done with that, the next thing we do is add an S curve, because that is what I think is quite bit of necessary in this particular photograph. So we create an S curve by clicking this curves option and create a slight S here. This is the before and after. See, just look at the shadows here. Now the next thing that is important to this image is adding some detail to the sky, because I think it needs a sky and the sky is very flat and filled with negative spaces. So we go with changing the sky. So for that, the first thing we do here is select the sky. So with the flood selection tool, we make a rough selection of the sky here. We want to exclude the mountains and then we refine. In this refine tool, with the big round brush, we refine the foliage on the right hand side, somewhat like here, and this top here. And then we invert this layer, invert the selection and duplicate the selection. Then we deselect it. Now as you can see, we have the foreground separated from the background in a beautiful manner. And now it is time for us to place a sky. So I have picked this sky. This is a nice one. And then we go for horizon blending, saturation, white balance. I need a cooler white balance here. And then brightness and contrast. That was a necessary bit of the photograph. And then some structure finally. Now as you can see here, we have a very sharp edge on this portion. As you can see here, it's very sharp and evident. So we need to do something about that, and for that, the best thing I can do here is probably add a layer and paint it away. So we will create a blank layer on top of that sky, but below the main, we place the blank layer on top of the sky but below the foreground here. And then with a brush, soft round brush, we sample this color from here with opacity around, with flow around 30%. We simply paint. Nothing complicated, just paint. And we have blended the sky like that, just like that. See, we have blended the sky to a lot portion. And the next thing we want to do here is add some global effects, like somewhat of lighting management. So for that we create a light layer on top of every single layer, and then we place the light here, and then we decrease the opacity of this light layer to give it a direction on the image. As you can see here, this was the before, this is the after. And then after that, just for the creative freedom, if you want to add a glow to the image, for that you create a Gaussian blur layer, preserve the alpha, select somewhat between 20 to 30 pixels, because I clicked this photography in 24 megapixels, so I have found that around 20 to 30 pixels works best for this kind of effect. And then change the blending mode to screen, and then you limit it using the blend options only to the highlights, not the shadows, only to the highlights. And then if you want to add some more drama to the image, you can do several other things, like maybe add a high pass filter to increase the clarity of the foliage, and I think these greens need a more, I think the green need more color. So for that, once again we go to the HSL panel, select the yellows, increase the saturation, increase the saturation, select the cyan. As you can see, the waters here, making the waters more colorful, and finally the blues, to make the blues a slightly bit punchier. And with that, we are done with editing this image. We came from literally this to this, from this to this, in couple of minutes. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Now it's time to say goodbye. Take care. Alvida.